Hey guys, what's up, and welcome to episode one of the Tennis Tags podcast, the quick fire podcast where we ask unique and interesting brands, coaches, and players 4 questions about tennis. Behind the mic today is your host, Peter Collier, that's me, and our special guest for today is Karue, who's going
Hi,
to be answering some questions today. Karue, please say hi, introduce yourself, and give us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do before I fire you some questions.
awesome. Hi, thanks for having me, Peter. My name is Karue. I am a former tennis pro. I got to about top 400 ATP. Now I am a tennis coach, and I also run a YouTube channel and a tennis page called MyTennisHQ, which
Awesome.
we do, lots of instructional videos, stuff like that.
Yeah, brilliant. So if you're ready for question one, let's go.
Let's go.
Right. So first up, when did you start playing tennis? What inspired you to start, and what motivated you to take it up competitively throughout your childhood?
Um, I started around 5, I think.
Yeah.
I pretty much started because my dad was just kind of like a, typical amateur player, playing clubs and
Hmm.
playing, little small tournaments, stuff like that. And, would bring me to the court, and I'll just, have a little racket, just be smacking ball around the court and the wall and all that stuff. And slowly, it just kind of transitioned into, taking a lesson here and there. I was back home in Brazil, just taking a lesson here and there. And I think really quickly it became, kind of apparent that I had a good level of talent for it. And, I kind of quickly, picked up and started playing like, small little tournaments in my town. And
Awesome.
it just kind of snowballed from there, especially I think from the beginning I was winning matches and stuff like that, and I think you just get excited about that, and you keep doing it, and then from that
Yeah.
point on, you're in for it.
You're in for the long haul. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I mean, a lot of players that I've encountered, or everyone that I've spoken to, seems to have gotten into tennis either because they like the individuality of the sport, or simply because their parents take it up and encourage you to give it a go, like has clearly happened to you.
Yes, exactly. I think you
Yeah.
take it early. You take it usually. I mean, you don't even know about individuality and stuff like that. But like if you when you have a good skill for something, I think it just makes it exciting, right? And then
Awesome. Yeah, exactly.
from that point on, you continue to compete and have a good time, and yeah, I do like the individuality of it, but I don't think in the beginning you think about it too much. You just
Yeah,
kind of
definitely.
you just have a good time with it, and then yeah, but it's just kind of how I think most people get started.
Awesome, yeah. So next up, I've obviously read up a little bit about you on the My Tennis HQ page. Saw you
Mhm.
reach junior high of, I believe it was 33,
Mhm.
an ATP of 371, which is very big achievement. So my question is along those lines to you: for the younger players who follow you and watch your content on YouTube, what's
Mhm.
the biggest takeaway that you have learned from developing as a player throughout your junior years, which these players can apply to their game both on and off the court? So some of those sort of key lessons throughout your development as a player.
I think the main thing is, now looking back at it all,
Yeah.
I think the development part, especially the on-court part, it's always going to be. I don't think there's a formula, right? I
Mhm.
think there's different schools, there's different types of coaching, there's different, you're gonna learn tennis a different way. You play, everyone has their own style. I think definitely, looking back there, the two main things are the off court stuff. So obviously the fitness side of it. If you're a junior, if you're a young pro, if you're trying to go to college, becoming as fit as you can it will go massively into your confidence level.
Of
I think
course.
that's pretty correlated, that part. And it's something that I personally didn't love to do, the off court stuff. I
Yeah,
did
the
it. It
fitness
was
is never the favorite people's favorite part.
exactly, especially the more like endurance part of it.
Oh
I
yeah.
was a quick on my feet, and I think a good just hand-eye coordination person, but like just anything that was like longer distance was always difficult for me. But I know that's very important, obviously, the being on the at the gym as well, becoming stronger and stronger.
Of course.
As you can see, guys like Alcaraz being 19 years
I
old
know.
and that fit.
Unbelievable player.
And then and I think nowadays there's a lot more emphasis on the mental side of everything, and how to really extract everything that you can from like your mind. I think that's
Definitely.
usually our biggest our toughest opponent is not really like on the other side, is really in our heads. So
Yeah.
that is something that later on in my way later on in my career, like kind of post college and everything, I started like figuring it out a little bit more. And I wish I was doing that when I was younger. I think that would have given me a much higher advantage.
Yeah. So it's that working on the mental strength as soon
Exactly. I
as you
think
can in the younger years of
yeah,
your
when you're
sort of
young,
development.
it's super tricky when you're young. You're looking at other people's rankings and who,
Yeah.
people that are same age as you. Wow, how are they much better than you? And there's little things that like, everyone kind of, a lot of the matches are decided even before the match, right? Like that, oh, I'm playing the 2 seed. Oh my God. And you go and lose 6-4, 7-6, and you're happy because it was like not happy, but you're like, oh, it was a close match. Good.
Exactly. Yeah.
That kind of stuff just doesn't do, you know what I mean? So like looking back at it, I wish I did a lot more work in that mental side of it. And there's sports psychs today, there's like all sorts of resources online.
Yeah.
um, I would advise to a lot of these juniors to really like work on that. And again, I think it's very personal. I don't have a formula for it. I think each person's it's going to be different, but really those two things. And then the tennis part, just really have fun with it. Like it has to be fun. It can feel like work. I
Yeah.
think it has to be fun. So
Fun is
don't.
definitely a key ingredient. I completely agree with that. It's I know obviously mental strength is a huge part of the modern game. With these up and coming juniors, the standard seems to keep getting higher and higher, and obviously new
Yeah.
capabilities within the game with advancements in equipment and the
Exactly.
development of sports psychology. Everything just keeps getting higher and higher. So these everything you can do to start off early to give yourself a better chance of success. Absolutely, I completely agree with that.
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
just, it's just the way it is. I mean, people keep getting better. The information keeps getting better. And, kids that are 17, 18 are just crazy good.
I know. Yeah,
What's the edge? I think everyone's going to learn how to hit a good ball, but what's your edge, right? And I
yeah.
think mentally, that's where you can really get an edge
The
mentally.
mental edge. Yeah, understood. Okay, next up. So tell us about your page and your channel, MyTennisHQ, more specifically. So how did that actually come into fruition? How did it start? And how were you able to grow the brand and following on social media? And lastly, do you have any tips for growing on social media in the tennis world while we're on that subject too?
Yeah, so pretty much, so my tennis HQ started with actually one of my co-founder. He's also a Brazilian guy. He played at
Yeah.
Pepperdine University. He was also like got to like 800 ATP, and he kind of came to me kind of during I think it was like kind of during the pandemic, like beginning of the pandemic, 2020, not beginning, kind of like in 2020. And he was like, why don't we, he had kind of self-taught how to create websites that rank on Google. So it actually started first just as a website. Just people will Google how many sets are played in tennis and stuff like that, and we just kind of figure out how to create a website that will rank on Google and all that. But I
Awesome.
always enjoyed like video and photography, stuff like that. So my buddy was like, you're on court a lot, like why don't you try doing YouTube, because that will definitely help. And obviously YouTube is a a lot of people are doing it. So I was like, yeah, let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. And it's took some time to like really iron out what we were doing, and to how do we separate ourselves from like everybody. But obviously you have
Mhm.
to like rank on YouTube and all that stuff. It's a game. It's a little game that you have
Yes,
to play.
it's a process.
Yeah, it's a whole process. In the beginning, you don't, getting that first 1,000 subscribers is really difficult,
Big
so
milestone.
yeah. So we I just kept on doing it. We were doing like in the beginning a lot of racket reviews because that would get people searching for that, and
Exactly.
that was like a way for us to get into the game. And then slowly I transitioned into more instructional stuff. Plus, at the time I was working with Naomi for those first 2 years that I was doing tennis HQ. I was working with Osaka. And obviously I kind of utilize that a little bit, put some videos hitting with her out there,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that helps. And I have obviously a lot of friends who are top 100, so I definitely utilize a little bit of my connections to grow. And I think part of it too, yeah, that was kind of it. And the third question is how do we grow, kind of tips. You know, I watched some in the beginning. I watched what was out there, like
yeah.
content wise. There's people who've been doing this for a long time, and there's some good stuff out there. But I also thought there was a lot of like bad stuff out there. I thought,
Misleading, sort of, almost.
yeah, just like people trying to reinvent the wheel. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
With like, crazy. This is why the forehands are this good. The ATP forehand, all this stuff, and people are like just kind of creating like different, like they're pretty much having to like reinvent the wheel all the time, which I was like, that's just making tennis very complicated, especially
yeah.
for an amateur who's
You want
trying
to make
to.
it simple.
Exactly. And I after kind of watching in the beginning, kind of watching a lot of the stuff that was out there, I completely stopped watching, and I just totally went with like my gut. Like, what do I think about this scenarios? And because I aim more towards players who are a decent higher level. I don't do too much like beginner stuff. I
Yeah,
want people that are at a certain level, maybe feeling a little stuck, to move up. So that was kind of my thing. And I just went out there, and I coach just do a good amount. I'm not doing this full time by any means, so I coach a
yeah,
lot and see the issues there. I see, oh, this is happening here, here, and here, so this could be a good video. And that kind of
exactly.
gives me the inspiration. And consistency to grow. You got to keep on going, and keep putting content out even when you don't think it's working out. Like sometimes you're like, maybe I'm just not doing this right, and you try something
Yeah,
else, like trying different things. And I think my last tip would be, we really focus on YouTube. We didn't spread ourselves too thin. I don't particularly spend too much time worrying about like Instagram and all that stuff, or TikTok nowadays, whatever it is. I'm like, my
yeah,
medium, it's long format on YouTube for people who, will sit down for like the 15 minutes lesson. And I want them to feel like by the end of that lesson, like they can remember, the main goal. They don't have to remember the entire lesson, but you can kind of like remember like the general idea. So you just become like more of like a higher tennis IQ, right? Like,
yeah, yeah.
and I can teach really like perfect technique. People hit the ball different ways. So I try to see like, what can I actually teach in this medium, which is online. And that's I think has been super helpful, and I stick to it. And I think obviously it's resonated with people because we grew way faster than we expected. So
Well, that's always a good thing, isn't it? It
yeah,
clearly shows what you were doing was right then, focusing
yeah.
on, there's a lot of people, probably I'd put myself into that bracket as well. Those sort of people who are entering or attempting to climb the ladder competitively, but there are small sort of holes in their game which need some attention, and they're keen to, improve themselves when they don't always have that coaching access or that one-on-one time with coaches. So I think obviously your videos, the keeping them very sort of simple and generalized, are very valuable to a large sort of group of
Yeah.
players.
I view it as like, because I'm in that situation like as a golfer, right? Like
Yeah,
I love playing golf, and I want to get better, and I'm already at a decent level. So when I go on YouTube to watch something to like, hey, how would I improve putting or chipping or like driving, whatever, right? I'm going to look at it. I don't really need like, oh, the perfect swing technique or whatever it is, but there's always like good swing thoughts that you find. It's like, oh, this makes sense or that makes sense. And not every video is going to make sense
yeah,
to your game, but one of them, like I recently watched like a golf lesson that just clicked. I was like, oh my God, this was this was like actually the best thought I could have. So,
Yeah.
I hope I can do the same, in the tennis world, where that person just that's trying to like, get over the hump, maybe watches one of the videos like that's what I needed. Like I just couldn't see it. And that's kind of how I go by it.
Yeah, definitely. And that must be very sort of fulfilling for yourself to know that you're helping those people in that way as well.
Exactly. And it's awesome. Yeah. We get so many like nice comments
Yeah,
that like I'm
positive
happy
community.
to help. Yeah. That we've been helping people. Yes.
Perfect. Right, brilliant. So, fourth question. Obviously, I saw that you went to UCLA, I believe it was, for your playing career. So, after you got out of your college tennis, when you sort of went to play on the tour, what were the most notable step ups you noticed in terms of sort of standard training regimes, player mentality, and what lessons can elite tennis teach us off the court in a sort of real life setting about how we can, approach our goals or create plans to overcome things that we find difficult?
Oh, good question. Yeah, so I left UCLA. My senior year, I was actually playing probably the best tennis I played in college,
Yeah,
but I was just like I really didn't want to go into the tour at the time. I'm like, I don't have any money, and how am I going to do this? So I actually took pretty much a year off. I was a volunteer coach at Pepperdine for a year.
yeah,
But I was playing some good tennis, and I went out during that year, and there was a tournament really nearby in Calabasas at 25K, and I was playing good ball. I was like, I'll play the qualies, and see what happens. I actually played the qualies, got qualified, got the 2 seed, beat the 2 seed, beat someone else, got to the quarters, had a tough match, but
yeah,
and just like as I as I did that, and then kind of like looking back at it, I was like, I kind of told myself, I was like, no one here is like really like that good. You know what I mean? Like I think a lot of people just kind of overthink like how, oh, there's just because this guy's like 400 in the world or 500 in the world, like
yeah,
I have no chance. And I'm like, at that level, like there is there's always a way. I think so. The first thing, it's a little bit of like, I call it like, I don't call it, I just stole it from a podcast that I listen to, but it's called irrational confidence. Just like get out there and really you're threading the line of like too much confidence, like being too cocky, but like also not respecting the other players
yeah.
that much,
Finding a balance.
finding that balance. I think it's super important to get yourself to the level to go out and compete with those guys without thinking like, oh, just because of his ranking, like I won't have a shot. So
Yeah,
that's the number one thing. I think, again, mentally, I think it's very important. And then the other part is like, again, I think it's in futures. I'll be totally honest. I don't think people are as professional as they should,
yeah,
including I include myself in that. I think I was, once I was moving into the challengers, that's where you saw, I mean, people were traveling with coaches already, and obviously that's difficult financially and all
oh
that,
yeah,
but it depends really where you're from, like if you have the support. But once you're getting into challengers, I mean, the level is pretty close to ATP tour level, if not the same. And
yeah,
that's
definitely.
when you see really like the professionalism. People, are dialed into their routines and their coaching style, like how they want to like be training and all that stuff. So really figuring it out, like again, for me, took a longer time to mature into that, but like really figuring it out, how you can train the best way, because you get to like, once you get to that point, like right, like at 20, 21, 22, and then now you're playing pros. One, you are who you are in terms of style, right? Like you can add shots and whatnot, but you're always going to be like, you can be a little bit more defensive. Maybe you play with a lot of spin, maybe you play flat, like
Yeah,
whatever. You have to commit to that style. You have to then really figure it out. How can you train very appropriately to that style? And I think that's something that for me is taking the ball early, all that stuff. How can I train my eyes to really see that? And yeah, just like really optimize your training to be very specific. I think that's the thing. It shifts from lots of hours on court to then being very specific with your training and like really like nails with it.
yeah. That sounds like a sort of a case of work smart, not hard.
Hmm.
Um,
Exactly. You're gonna work hard, I think, more off the court, but like you can do, an hour and a half or two of like really solid, optimized training. I say today we're just gonna go like big on serve and return. That's what we're gonna do. Today we're gonna, really work on dominating with the forehand and just like really
yeah,
like nail that down. Because you're already at a level that like just hitting middle cross, blah blah blah, just like it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? It's like it's not really gonna help you that much.
yeah,
So that's something that it's truly important. I think once you kind of reaching that level, and obviously, like you're around very competitive people, you can see what they're doing, see what they're working on, and obviously try to incorporate some of that stuff yourself.
brilliant. Um, so excellent. So thanks for the interview, Karue. So that's our 4 questions done for today. And before we wrap it up, it's time for what me and Louis, or even though Louis isn't here, like to call the shameless plug. Karue, please feel free to take a minute and promote anything you're working on, want people to take a look at, or something that you just believe in.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to subscribe to our channel, My Tennis HQ on YouTube, that it's really where all of our work is going towards right now. We have launched recently, also like a subscription plan for more like we do live calls once a month. So we kind of we're trying to build a community in there. We call it the winner circle. So you can check that out on our website, mytennishq.com, and you can sign up. We have like free training guides in there. And if you want to obviously continue with that subscription, there's there's a courses in there. There's all this good stuff in that winner circle. But really, I really put all of my work, all my thought process these days into our YouTube channel and hopefully creating
Yeah.
the best content online. In tennis, that's really my goal. I get competitive about that, and that's what I'm trying to do. So if you guys want to check that out, we got a good amount of good stuff in there, and I appreciate everyone that's been watching already.
Brilliant. So, Karue, thanks again for joining me today on the Tennis Tags podcast. It's been a pleasure having you on. And thank you guys for tuning in. This has been episode 1. And if you'd like to be in line to see our future episodes, make sure to hit the subscribe or follow button and let us know what you thought by leaving a comment and a rating.